Good morning, Tuvalu, and welcome to Star Trek Picard, Season 3, Episode 4, No-Win Scenario, because evidently this franchise cannot move beyond the Wrath of Khan. Today, to start off with, we're gonna take a little bit of time before getting into the proper review, with some generally news and announcement stuff. So first, it was brought to my attention by someone in the comments last episode that the spoilers for Star Trek Picard, the subtitles for Star Trek Picard this season do have spoilers. So I talked about the little, alien people in Vadic's ship, wondering who they were. Apparently the subtitles tell you. I don't know what they tell you. Maybe they say they're changelings, maybe they say they're something else. We're not gonna talk about subtitle spoilers, right? It's, a real shame. I don't really get why, because, I understand the subtitles are probably something that's, they give them to, some third party or some general, Paramount subtitle division, whatever. So they're not necessarily, fully versed on the story. They're just transcribing these scripts. But, I don't understand how these happen. Think of Lower Decks even had the, Veritas episode, what was the trial/birthday party that had amazing subtitles in Tendy's when she was giving her speech about what happened, with all the redacted and comically spy stuff. The subtitles lent into that, and so yeah, just beware. There's a bit in this at the end when Jack Crusher has his little vision thing. I'd analyze what's being said in subtitles, but for all I know, they'll say Odo. I don't know, they'll say, Dominion Leader, or Geordie LaForge. It's oh, okay, well then, that's who that is. Second bit of notice, more general Star Trek things. It's rung some alarm bells for me for the first time, where every Star Trek since Enterprise, actually since Voyager, has had a Blu-ray release with Paramount, and Lower Decks is getting a DVD release, but it's going to be the first Star Trek that doesn't get a general Blu-ray release. Paramount's doing a made-on-demand, so, they're only going to make as many Blu-rays as are ordered. Apparently it's more expensive when you do it like that. So, I'm grateful they're still doing it. You know, if Lower Decks Blu-ray doesn't turn a profit, whatever. Well, that's upsetting, but at least they're doing it for the people like me, and they're making Blu-rays, as opposed to, Fox or something. The primary reason I have not seen the Orville beyond Season 1 is there's no Blu-ray. But yeah, I want to give a heads up. I don't know when. I keep checking for orders for that Blu-ray to go, but if you're someone who collects the physical media, not even collects, owns it, which you should, just be aware there will be a limited window for Lower Decks. And finally, it has come to my attention that Star Trek Discovery Season 5 is, of course, coming out later this year. And it will be the final season of Discovery. After 6 years of episodes being aired, it is coming to a close. So almost a 7-year run. It's a bit weird having a 5-season run. 6 years, because of course there was a COVID year, they wouldn't have done one. But yeah, somewhat surprisingly, but I mean, it's the sort of show you could probably go on forever. I'm not going to talk too much about that. I'm sure we'll hold off till the season starts airing. But yeah, actually the second Star Trek season to come to a close. This is the first, and it just kind of came out of nowhere to me. Oh, Discovery's ending. That's a bit weird. Funny enough, it also makes my modern watch order guide already outdated. I've edited that. I've did the first editing pass, and there were 3 things that are already outdated. Deep Space Nine is now a prerequisite for Picard. Discovery only has 5 seasons, and I can't remember the last, but yeah, that was kind of funny. Shall we... Whoop, come on, where's the button? There we go. Shall we get into the episode? Yes, after I take a drink. Alex is here today again, so we are going to be dancing around proper nouns as we do. But, Yeah, I really enjoyed this one. I'm much to my surprise, I'm really enjoying this season. It's actually baffling to me that not only was this in the last season made by the same team, they were made by the same team simultaneously. So they had no opportunity to receive feedback or see the final product of last season or learn from it. Like, did they just ignore season 2 and focus on this? It's baffling, but let's stop with a backhanded compliment. Like, this episode, as much as the writing team is, probably going away after this show, or at least it's gonna change a bit. It's giving this episode really kind of cemented faith in what this team can do, because again, this team is consistently nailed its like key moments, its key scenes. But this time, they're set in actually what is so far a solid and enjoyable plot. But, plenty more things this season that I've, in previous reviews, gone, I'll have to judge this when I hear what's happening, or I don't see how you could make this work. Like, of course, the Rambo? Where did that come from? Riker. The stuff he's mentioned with his family, obviously being him attempting to play the trombone and them wanting to get away from that. I don't have to make that joke anymore. Because actually, we'll talk more about it, but no, you've got, like, really solid character motivations. Let's actually focus on this scene a bit. Because I've said a lot, and especially in this season, a lot of the justification often in not just Star Trek, but any, like, newer continuation of an old franchise is they'll say the characters are different. They're totally different. I don't know, Luke Skywalker, anyone, take your pick. And they'll be like, oh, people change. And I've always said, well, no, and I didn't invent this quote, by the way, but it's, I can't cite it, I'm afraid. But, it's, some people change, but most people don't, and usually not that much. And I even said, what you need, whether you're a fictitious person or a real person, to change your kind of fundamental beliefs, is some sort of arc. And the only way to do it without an arc is some, like, incredibly traumatic major life event. Well, not only did Riker have a little arc to get where he started in this season to kind of here. I mean, he's in the middle of an arc, he's starting to change. I'll talk more about that later. But, the reason Riker went from 27 to like 44-year-old with totally consistent beliefs and behavior that we very much understood to what he was, that from the Next Generation, to what he was at the start of this season, is because of, yes, an incredibly traumatic life event that we knew about, but he, went into a lot of detail in here, explaining it to the characters, but also, showing it, and, like, how that's affected him. He had a major loss, and he was like, I've been all around the universe, and I've never once seen a sign of anything beyond this. It's like we die, and then we're gone. Like, that person's just stopped. And he's afraid of that. He's afraid of, stopping. He's afraid of everyone else he loves, kind of stopping. And, yeah, I mean, the only oddity I'd say here is really, when was Thaddeus? I want to say 18 years ago. I'm not sure exactly, but it's about the gap between Lower Decks and Picard, minus, like, a year or two. And we see him in Nepenthe, and in season 1, and he seems like pretty cheerful, normal life. It feels kind of odd. It could take 18 years to kind of get to this point from that major tragedy, but just because, like, he can have an outwardly normal and, like, happy appearance, but still maybe be dipping down into, I don't know, all this depression and negative feelings. Maybe Nepenthe was just a real good day for him. It works. But yeah, I think the other part would just be he's known, Deanna and that crew and everyone for so long. It just took that long to kind of get to this point, or maybe Riker's just aging. He's older. He's not gonna live forever. He's not on death's door, but he's definitely in an age where you'd probably start thinking that, like, hey, how much time is really left? But I'm very much enjoying this episode. My uncle, like 2 days ago, the Today I Found Out one, he texted me, like, hey, just so I have, like, my expectations set right, on a scale of 1 to 10, how good is Picard? Season 3. Because he knew, like, I gave up on Season 2 and stuff. And I told him, like, I don't know. It's too early to tell, but generally positive. I'm probably afterwards going to text him and be like, actually, maybe they'll butcher their conclusion. Maybe in the end this plot won't make sense, but still, all the, like, important kind of character stuff is there. Because this episode is also a great analogy for that, because its plot is absolutely ridiculous, and like any Star Trek episode that relies on biology, doesn't make any sense, and is kind of like, what? Like, let's talk about the, like, in order for this plot to work, right? This nebula, whatever, is having contractions, because contractions are evidently such a universal constant that I'd buy that for the humanoid races, because we were all seeded by the progenitors. But it's so universal that even nebulas and, like, random spacefaring aliens, totally unrelated to the progenitor spawn, whatever you want to call them, have identical contractions to us, to the point you can track them to the second, and you can also start doing that pretty much immediately. It's like, where in the episode? Here? Or something? That we first see Dr. Crusher actually counting down the time to the contractions. So it all relies on that, of course. I thought that the nebulas would even have contractions. There's a line that, like, energy is logarithmic in there somewhere. I'm like, what does that even mean? It's, like, I don't know too much about the actual act of giving birth, but I also suspect contractions are not so precise you could track them to the second across, like, anyone. That would come as a big surprise. But yeah, it's not an excuse, but you can't exactly say it's worse than than the classic Star Treks. It's just, this is probably the most ridiculous setup since Enterprise. Like, unless maybe Lower Decks intentionally set up an incredibly ridiculous premise, like Veritas or something. But no, that's more like the set dressing, That's the back piece to kind of get things to happen. Like, yeah, it's particularly wishy-washy, and look how great the universe is, because I guess that's what Star Trek does. But that's not the focus of the episode, that's just the set dressing. And so it doesn't really matter if it's like, it seems like something Voyager would have come up with. Voyager plots, always particularly crazy. But it's good to know, even in the modern day, Star Trek cannot do biology. I think I'm going to jump straight into kind of analyzing this in the little scene by scene, as I like to call them. Because this was one of the episodes, I think, as I said, I very much enjoyed this episode. I'm enjoying this season. I'm very pleasantly surprised with that. But it's the kind of enjoyment where I don't know if I really have too much to say. There's not too much new to theorize about. So I think there's going to be from your perspective, a disproportionately large amount of nitpicks and real little things. Because I've talked about that before. That's just kind of something you can always talk about. whereas an episode that's just generally good, and I can define why, but in a lot of times it's like, yeah, I'm enjoying it, that's my review. But yeah, let's get started. And it's a good sign that my cheeks are already sore this quick into the live stream. I don't know why. I'm finding it interesting. Picard's often starting with these little flashbacks that tie into the right now. You know what I mean? Like, last episode, or 2 episodes ago, was it? You had Riker and Picard in the bar, and they were talking about those 17 seconds. And then, that's that scenario of, like, having to go to sick bay to see, like, your kid, whatever. And that exactly happened. You had this, which, it's to talk about him flying the shuttle and stuff, and it's exactly what happened. It's a little more integrated into the story, and I have to say, I like, it's gonna come back. Like, you've seen TV before. These little opening scenes are basically describing what the episode's gonna be, but I think they're doing it in ways where the parallels aren't necessarily obvious from the start, and you can get the general theme of these scenes, like what's going to happen, but I don't know. There's something about how they're tying back to them. It's like, oh, he's actually, you expect something different. This one had so much. Like, I'm trying to remember. You started off and just everyone came to admire him, and he told this random story about him and Jack. That just some random story. And then it went to, like, if you always have faith in your crew, you'll get through this. And it does a hard cut to a scene where, like, the whole crew's kind of lost faith in each other. They're not going to work together. And you're like, brilliant. We've done the thematic artsy nonsense. We've done it. That's what this episode is. It's like, no one has faith. They're going to get faith in each other and make it through. Or, they're just not going to have faith, and this episode shows that causes them to fail. But then, later on, it's like, no, it's actually like the shuttle thing. Picard's got to, do the same sort of navigation shuttle thing. And you're like, oh, I wasn't expecting that. It's the sort of thing that makes it seem clever. Like, it's tying in, it's coming back. Sort of a Chekhov's gun, they fired it twice. And then, it's actually Picard and Jack Crusher doing it. And then, you've already had that second firing of Chekhov's gun. And then just this scene at the end, which I'll come back to, it's like, oh no, we're not done. We're gonna fire Chekhov's gun a 3rd time, and it's gonna hit you like a truck. Like, I'll get back to this scene at the end. But yeah, I think they're doing these really well. And I'm enjoying watching them. I'm enjoying these little slices of Picard's life. I've just realized as well, when Jack was so quick to say, like, no, he's never been to 10 forward, that bar, it's because he actually was, like, right here, and we see that. I think this episode is also giving me faith that the plot's not going to be a mess, like the last season, because a good mystery, something that subverts your expectations, is when you learn the truth, you go back and watch it, and loads of things make more sense. Or things, not that, it's that things that weren't confusing. Like, these things weren't confusing before, they didn't seem like plot holes and stuff, but you're like, hang on, like, I know why this is happening. To use a last season example, Laris, or whatever the Watcher's name was, she has tech that looks kind of Romulan. And I picked up on this. I'm like, that tech looks kind of Romulan. That's not a plot hole, it's just like, oh, it's a bit green and futuristic-y, it's Romulan. But no, she has Romulan tech, because you later learn she is a Romulan. That's an example. And you're like, oh, that actually is Romulan. And you're not really supposed to notice that the first time. God, I've just lost all those examples I had prepared. I got that in this episode. Like, Vadic's ship is super crazy overpowered and over the top because it's got Dominion tech. And the Dominion tech is like, what if the Federation focused on, well, domination and war? So yeah, it's a splinter cell, you know, it's sort of a Dominion terrorist group, but they still, you know, as changelings, had access to all of the combined tech of everyone in the Dominion. You know, that scientific knowledge is known to them. And there were other things I'll probably pick up on as we go through, but I just remember kind of little moments like, and I can see going back to this season, which I will 100% do at some point, not just to, like, get through because, you know, Alex and I have to watch it, or as some part of greater watch through, but because I'm enjoying it. I feel like there'll be moments like that where I'm like, oh, I know why this is happening now, or like I forgot about that detail, but it makes total sense. So yeah, so far I'm enjoying this show. It's a great feeling. Let's move forward a bit. God, again, it's trying to remember. Like, I don't think there's gonna be a whole lot of specific things I want to bring up. Yeah, this scene I was very thankful for, where Riker kind of actually started talking about, you know, the problems he's been having, and we're learning more about what happened to this character in the intervening 20 years. And yeah, it makes a lot... His behavior in the past, which I could understand why he was doing it, I now understand why it actually means that much to him. Like, before, you know, for some reason... his experience with Thaddeus was making him really cautious and stuff as a ship's captain. And I was like, well, I don't know, like, why? I'm not sure I can really get the relationship here. I can't make that connection. But then now, it's like, well, yeah, because it's not about Thaddeus. It's about this, like, fundamental shift in worldview that Thaddeus's death caused. You know, this whole... just fear of nothing, fear of fading away and everything. When he talks before about how, like, Deanna can feel everything, but, like, he feels nothing. And it's not that, you know, Deanna and Kestra want time away from Riker. It's that Riker thinks they do. Riker thinks he's trying to help them. He's closed off, you know, he's cutting himself away from his family, which, hey, I guess Crusher did that, like, loads of people are doing that. It's bad. This whole season's message is, I think, don't do that. It's about the connection, the family, the loyalty. Yeah, I mean, it's as these scenes are coming, these major scenes, and this is why this character is doing this thing. It's sweeping the problems away. And in this season, I don't think they're big enough problems that it ruins the viewing. And I think the explanations are coming pretty much as early as they can without, you know, Riker showing up and being like, hello, I'm Riker. In the past 20 years, this is my life story and my total character motivations. I wondered what why Jack didn't want to see Picard last episode. That was answered this episode. You know, like, I imagine we'll get maybe more about Worf and his motivations in the next episode we see him. I'm just very happy with this season. I think it's going to be better on a rewatch. Both of the binge is a binge where you don't have to get these little week breaks between episodes, but also just having all that pre-knowledge and context. Moving on. Yeah, this guy, Captain Titan, what's his name? I swear I know his name at this point. Like, Chad? It's not Chad. It's a T? Chad? Captain Titan's name? Do I think it starts with a T? It's Shaw! There we go. I was gonna say, do I think it starts with a T because I call him Captain Titan? Captain Shaw is still a dick. And the show knows he's a dick. They have him, Captain Shaw himself, acknowledge the fact that he's an irredeemable dick. But that doesn't change the fact this irredeemable dick is a Starfleet captain, and this is still just one of the parts of the show that I don't like. And yes, Shaw, thank you, Stress BK. Yeah, he's just not working for me. Are you really joining right when I started getting into like the first negative of the episode? Wow. But I kind of think this season so far is a good sign that like Picard needs to go. Ideally, maybe in way for like Star Trek Janeway, Star Trek 7 or something. Well, not even 7. I want to sweep this whole Picard cast, everyone they've touched, because I think now they've got the characters right. They know how to deal with them. They know how to make the payoffs worth it and like feel great and be satisfying and actually have good, meaningful contributions to the canon. But Picard is still set on top of this backdrop of not a dystopian Federation, but like an America 2023 Federation, or, you know, maybe the brighter, wider world. Because whenever I interact with this Federation, see who's in charge, see their policy decisions and stuff, it feels often like, well, yeah, this is what America would do. You know, today. And that's because I'm American. You know, if you're English, if you're, I don't know, like maybe unless you live in a fantastic liberal utopia, it feels the sort of things you go like, yeah, my government would do that. And that's not what the Federation should be. Like, you know, for 40 years, thereabouts, yeah, 40 years-ish, Star Trek was able to make very meaningful and impactful stories about the governments of its time, the 60s, the 80s, the 90s, and not make Starfleet actually act like them. Starfleet could slip, as I've said, but it was never like that at its core. Whenever Starfleet behaved like a modern government might, it was an oddity, not the norm. And I want them to go like, right, we now kind of know how to deal these legacy characters. Let's just wipe that Starfleet clean, and let's plonk it down in a show with like a proper Starfleet, a utopian Starfleet that can bend, but it's not gonna break. And its core isn't today. Its core is, you know, the TNG, the Deep Space Nine, the Voyager Starfleet. Heck, the Lower Decks one, the Prodigy. I'm not just going to limit it to the classics. But yeah, it's good, though, to kind of feel that it's time for Picard to go as it's going. Unlike Discovery, that kind of came out of nowhere, it's like, yeah, it's time. You know, I just wipe what didn't work away and give me something new. I'm afraid that something new is Section 31, and it'd be absolutely remarkable if they put that in a utopia. But yeah, it's just this underbelly. It's this rotten foundation that still peeks through with characters like Shaw. And like Picard, is this the first time Picard said fucking in this episode? Is that the first time Picard's done like a proper swear? I can think of some others, but I don't. Picard doesn't F-bomb. That just doesn't. That doesn't happen. What? But I think there might be some complaints about you know, I could see certain types of people complaining about this story, where, you know, he basically snuck out the bedroom window to go get laid. Like, but to me, that's just building more on Academy Picard, like pre-Tapestry Picard, which this might have been post-Tapestry, but I'm going to choose to believe it was before. And that's kind of where I feel the benefit of not being on like TV, where you should use that. So what I mean is, you know, on a streaming service, you can pretty much air whatever the heck you want, so long as it's not actually illegal. If Paramount Plus wanted just porn on Paramount Plus, they could do that. They don't have to worry about any network thing or whatever. They might have trouble advertising it, but they could do that. You could never have done that in... Well, nowadays, maybe you could do it on TV, but it'd have to be restricted, like, after 10 p.m. and on these specific channels and also loads of guidelines. But even then, I don't know. Was Game of Thrones on TV? Like, broadcast TV? And I think a lot of the complaints with, like, the swearing and stuff, where it's unwelcome, is that, like, they can do it, now they are. You know, that kind of... but unnecessarily so. Whereas this is something like, yeah, I struggle to believe you could have had this scene in a broadcast, you know, like TNG or something. Maybe I'm being a bit ridiculous here, but, you know, the exact wording, the phrasing, the behavior. But that's I think, the cadet, you know, Picard that TNG wanted and pictured, they just couldn't write. And so I like this scene, you know? I thought this was a great one. Some stress-free K. Sometimes older people do get a little more short-tempered and vulgar out of frustration, but he's still a more competent captain than Shaw. I mean, yeah, maybe it works for you, but, like, this is Captain Picard. This is, like, you have unrealistic... like beauty standards. This is like unrealistic moral standards. I don't want to imply that Picard level morality is impossible, but this is like the textbook, the poster child of morality. This is literally like perfect moral human. It's like, I just can't see Picard dropping an F-bomb. Like, even if you think it's kind of ridiculous, some sort of taboo against swearing, I think it's ridiculous Picard would think that. It's, it just struck me as like, whoa, Picard wouldn't do that. All right. Anything else we got? I'll tell you what, though. I wanted to hear this story about an Andorian and, like, how it kind of tied together to Picard's question. I'm not really sure why they were, like, started muting it slowly, but I wanted to hear the story about an Andorian. Especially, there was an Andorian in the picture behind him. Am I streaming audio? It is a bit grating. Yeah, it's like, if Worf did it, I'd be like, you know, I've never heard Worf swear, but I don't think I would have batted an eye. It's that Picard did it, you know? But yeah, look, it's a little TOS Andorian guy. Going through again. I'll say, it bothers me. Again, this is where the reference doesn't work. And maybe I'm noticing things like the Calto board kind of taking me out of it in these quarters 7 enters. Well, actually, right there. There's a little game of Calto. Is like, why is it there? Because Voyager had Calto. But why does this changeling have Odo's bucket? Unless we're going to some questionable twist that Odo is behind this whole thing, which we're not. They're way too respectful about Odo in, like, the past few appearances. Why do all the changelings have Odo's bucket, which is like a Cardassian aesthetic bucket, sorry, because... Or is it Bajoran, actually? That's a point. But it's definitely one of the two, like, designed to fit on Deep Space Nine, because that's where Odo was found. And, like, maybe that's the optimal inside shape. But can I just get this? Because it's literally got the same sort of decorations, I feel, as Odo's bucket. I guess it's smaller, but it feels a little like, why do all the changelings have Odo's bucket? You know, maybe I'm being crazy looking at this now. It is gray, you know, not brown. It's smaller. I'll give them... Okay, it's not exactly Odo's bucket, but, like, it's Odo's bucket. You know what I mean? And also, we should really stop hiding things in these lights, because everyone hides things in these lights, and it's always super obvious, and you should just not put him there. In fact, is it even suspicious? Like, you just have a bucket in your quarters? The only reason this bucket is suspicious is because it looks like Odo's bucket. If they just replicated, if they replicated like a metal pail and like you found that in the quarters, you'd be like, oh, that's a pail. Or just like a trophy. Replicate a fake boxing trophy and like, that's basically a bucket, you know? The little things, you know? It's the little things. I do, you know, want to bring up, though, that the one thing that doesn't really work right now is that this is a changeling, right? Why are they a solid right now? In the Dominion War, it kind of worked. I've said this before, that, you know, they gotta walk around like the solids. They gotta live in a solid world. When they leave the Great Link, they want to like. I've got a video about this. I think it's even a short. Why all the changelings look like Odo. You know, they want. There are reasons. There are plenty of reasons why the changelings would look solid, even among just like the Jem'Hadar, the Cardassians, the Vorta. It's weird here. Unless the other people on this ship aren't changelings, maybe this isn't a Dominion ship, because, like, let's acknowledge, you have to be a solid, like a humanoid, to run this ship. Just look at it. But could the Dominion, if it wanted to, really not build, like, a ship that could be piloted, like, in a liquid form? Or not humanoid, a shape they despise? Maybe because this is a terrorist cell, they stole an alien ship, or all the Dominion ships are designed to be piloted by Vorta and Jem'Hadar, but this doesn't look Dominion. You know, it doesn't have like the right sort of color schemes for what we've seen of Dominion vessels in the past. But yeah, it's like it could be explained. If these aren't changelings, great, it works now. And I'm not going to check the subtitles to see if they're changelings or not. But, yeah. I also want to know if I could get a good shot, of, that's a bit late. The face. Come on. Do a cut. Let me see his face. Oh my god, it's expensive. There we go, good enough. I'm going to kind of retract something I said last episode, where I thought this was a really good modern take on the changing effect. I think it's too fleshy for me. Just a little too fleshy. Like, there's a better example later that's not so gooey. I might have shifted it more in towards the oranges and yellows. Maybe they didn't because the ship is orange and yellow, but it's a bit too, like, life as we know it, if that makes sense. It looks too much like muscle, bone, solidy flesh as opposed to goo. And, yeah, I just would have shifted it in color slightly. Everything else works, just shift it more into the orange and browns. David C. The liquid form of the changeling in this show is very different than it was on Deep Space Nine, and apparently there's an in-show reason for this. Perteri Metallices in one of his Twitter exchanges. Could you... Oh, he wasn't specific. Okay, I was going to ask if you could give it. First, on-screen equals canon, not on-screen equals not canon. That has been Star Trek's rule for as long as I can remember. If it helps kind of explain it, great. There should be some sign of it on screen. But also, I think we should acknowledge this isn't a, hey, let's think of a reason, now that's why they look different. Most likely, it could be. Let's just wait and see. This is gonna be a, we want it to look different. Well, hang on, how come it doesn't look like Deep Space Nine? Jim, give me a reason. Thank you, Jim. So, if they wanted it to look like Odo, they could have. I actually think it is pretty close. I want to get to that shot where we actually see the gooey changeling later in this episode. We'll hopefully come up on it. That looks like Odo, but shifted towards reds. If you just shifted it to Orange and Brown, it'd be Odo, just in HD. Just for UK, I feel like Vatic is a hybrid that can accept Changeling Goo to replace her hand. That would work, actually. It wouldn't explain the other changelings, though. Stress VK, my theory for the change is demonstrate, sorry, these are changelings, are descendants from Grumby, Pokey, and Goo. I have absolutely no idea what you are talking about. Does remind me of, though, about how Captain Shaw had, like, really racist and demeaning descriptions of the changelings in as like 20 years after the Dominion War. It's like someone now calling a Cardassian the Spoonhead. It'd be like, dude, really? Like, we've learned better. David C., the implication is that their new liquid form is story related. Great. You know, I might wish it looked a bit different still. I could easily see, my go-to is, there's a difference? Oh, Section 31's virus. Bam. You know, that caused some change to the changelings. That, if I needed to point to a reason, there it is. But yeah, if it's story-related, I'll wait to see what happened. Maybe there was some virus that's making them more solid, and so that's why they are more viscous, they look more muscly. You know, there are plenty of reasons, but yeah, I'll wait for the explanation then. Carlos A. Smith, hello! The scene from Vatic Left Hand is directly taken from an anime where a young man had his left hand eaten and recomposed with an alien hybrid who talks and change shapes to weapons. Is that confirmed? Because it is also, I could say it's taken from that time when Luke Skywalker got his hand cut off. But that wouldn't surprise me. It wouldn't be the first anime reference in Star Trek USS Akira, which is in fact called the Thunder Child. And I think both of those are anime references. Yeah. What did Picard call this dish? Because I think it was a fish. It does not look like a fish. Little things. But yeah, let's go on. I mean, a lot of these, like, I like this scene, but I don't have too much to say about it. It was just engaging. I was enjoying it. But there's a point, actually. There's a mystery box here. But, you know, we've had so little focus on it, and I don't want to say it feels like it's there just to be there. I guess it's showing us more is coming. Like, in theory, you could end the show right here. They better be heading back to that parade, or Starfleet, because there's no reason for the Titan to be out here, if you remember. And of course, they'll be interrupted, I'm sure. But I think this season's gonna work in the same way that Enterprise Season 3 worked. Because this does not seem like a show about the mystery box at all. It's plot relevant, sure, just like the Xindi were plot relevant. You know, the spheres, the expanse, all that was plot relevant. But it's not at all the focus, and so that's great to see, because it means when I go back to Picard, I'm going to get all these emotional beats, all these character developments, all these, everything, you know, everything with Jack, with Riker, with Crusher, with Worf. And it's not just going to be, ooh, what's in the mystery box? Well, I know what's in the mystery box. Like, I wouldn't say it's elevating this watch through. Like, Season 3 of Enterprise is elevated on a first watch through because it's a really good mystery. So far, this is in the background. It'll probably pop up and be more prominent later. And hopefully that'll make it really enjoyable. Like, I'll wonder, I'll theorize, I want to know. But I don't think it's going to make it boring. Like, Picard Season 1 is a lot more boring if you know what's happening, because it's all mystery box. It's why, it's one of the reasons people think cite Nepenthe and Remembrance as the best episodes because they're not mystery box. Like, Remembrance is a very solid standalone, it's the news scene. It's got its own moral message. It starts the mystery box, but that stands on its own. Nepenthe is fun times with Riker, and everything else is just about the mystery box. Moving on. Yeah, Captain Dick again. I don't get this. Like, I can't say that I've ever had a loved one murdered by the Borg Collective in the, first major devastating battle in a century. Funny enough, But I've never... he's just a dick. Cisco, when Cisco met Picard, he was cold, and, he saw Locutus, an emissary. Cisco was cold to Picard because of basically functionally the same reasons as Shaw. It's at the high level, the same reason. I didn't like that either. That's, I guess, kind of a shock for the audience. This isn't TNG, this isn't Picard anymore. This is a new guy. But Cisco, and, that hour, the time he spent with the prophets, by the end of the episode, when he goes to meet with Picard again, that's gone. He doesn't see Picard as Locutus anymore. He's got a new leash on life. He's moving on. And I think he probably realizes that Locutus isn't Picard. That the Borg... Look at it, think of it this way. Imagine the Borg didn't attack Wolf 359, but the Romulans kidnapped Picard and used a mind extractor to gain everything Picard knew, and they used that to gain a tactical advantage in Wolf 359. I don't think anyone would judge Picard in any way, but the Borg did the same thing, and they judge Picard. I think 30, maybe 40 years after Wolf 359, Captain Dick should be less of a dick about it. Captain Dick should probably know better. And yes, it explains his feelings towards Seven and Picard. I think we could have guessed, it's probably Wolf 359 related. It gives this guy motivation, but it still paints him as a dick who knows he's a dick. He thinks he's a shitty person, and he's been this way for decades, and he's also captain of a Federation starship. And he should know better, therefore he should be better. That's the kind of Starfleet that I think should be the backdrop of a season like this. And, yeah, I mean, he's just not working for me. I mean, again, the actor's doing great at the part he was given, and I'm sure he's doing everything the writers and directors want, but his character's not working. And it's like, oh yeah, Captain Dick is on the screen. I don't understand why you'd write him. Is it just to put conflict into the story? To drive conflict and therefore drive the story? I guess maybe you want to see him get his comeuppance, or you want to see something horrible happen to him later. Maybe you're going to give him a sacrifice, but I don't understand why you'd want to watch people like Captain Shaw. It's just me. Just Free K, I'm not a fan of bullies either. I feel like Shaw realizes he's out of his depth when it comes to this level of alien engagement. It's more than that, though. Because, even before the Titan was redirected, he was a massive dick. I think the first line he has in this show is, I'm sorry I started eating early, but your, ego and your reputation preceded you so far that it arrived and I started eating. Then he turns to Riker. He's like, yeah, you had to scrape all that filthy jazz out of the system. I don't drink wine. Your gift is shit. Like, he himself is acknowledging that he's a shitty person and a massive dick. And this is known. Like, people who know him know this. And Starfleet's like, this is acceptable. Like, someone from Admiralty should go down and be like, look, Shaw, you're good at what you do, but this behavior needs to stop, and it's just a liability, and it's being a dick. Or put him in counseling, one of the two. Carlos A. Smith, what made that more hard to deal with is that Picard was used as the face of the Borg in the battle to the Feds. It was a double stab, resistance is futile, and their morale was crushed. Yeah, I'm not saying it's unreasonable to have strong feelings about Picard. In fact, in a case like Sisko or even Shaw, when Picard unexpectedly walks into the room, what it's going to do is suddenly bring up the most traumatic event in their entire lives. Like, suddenly and out of the blue and after years, if not decades. But, Sisko is a little more forgivable because I don't think he was necessarily a dick towards Picard. I think it was that. He was being reminded of, like, the worst possible day in his life at that point. And he got a lease on life. The reason he changed was he started moving past that day. He finally left the Saratoga, wherever ship he was on, in 20-something years, where also we learned so much more about the Borg. We've had so many more freed people, so many more opportunities to learn. We've had the artifact, we've had Hugh, Seven, the Reclamation Project. Shaw not only hasn't learned better and learned that Picard may bring up strong emotional reactions, but he should keep it to himself because Picard didn't do those things. He hasn't. He doesn't seem to have healed or moved on in any way, which is just another point of failure in this, what should be this sort of liberal utopia, where prioritized mental health, a counselor on every ship, Starfleet psychiatric evaluations and all this stuff, that they just let Captain Shaw keep going, and he hasn't addressed this trauma in any way. It's a time problem for me. And a fact that he's a massive dick for completely unrelated and other reasons. Not just a look at it's Locutus, And even if it was all totally justified and worked in the best character arc in the entire universe, I still don't want to watch him. And in the end of the day, that's probably like the most important thing, is I should want to watch this show. I wonder if Shaw is going to hand over command to Riker and Picard for the rest of this season and become slightly more humble and less unappealing. I don't think he's going to become more humble. I think, if anything, he's going to die. He's going to sacrifice himself at the end. Or, like, it's right at the end. I don't know, he has some revelation. But even the examples he gives, like, he suddenly turns to Seven and is like, look, I was wrong about you. I'm a massive dick. I've already acknowledged I'm a massive dick. And you're a great commander. You're going to be a great captain one day. And also, this is all clearly stuff I would never say because it's a total fabrication and I don't believe it at all. Like, that's just being a dick. The show acknowledges he's a dick. That's his character trait. I'm willing to look the other way about Shaw's attitude because he's drop-dead gorgeous. Hang on, let me move this bar. Come on, move your hand, Shaw. To each his own, I guess. He's not ugly, like, he's just a guy to me, but you may want to think about some things if you're willing to overlook being a total dick. But, well, hey, you know what? You want to watch the show. Literally, watch the show. And I did just say that is the most important thing. Yeah, let's skip forward again. Anything else? Yeah, just a ridiculous biological backdrop for this episode. Here's something that I don't think it's necessarily wrong. I think it's mostly bothering me because it's different. I want to get a shot. There we go. There's the shot. This conference room doesn't appear to have a door, but even if it did, it's wide open. Every single major discussion and decision in this show, except for the original one to, like, divert the Titan, has taken place very publicly and has been very heated and emotional. And it really bothers me. Like, an open door policy is probably good, and keeping the crew informed is good, but, you know, you also probably shouldn't see all these senior officers, like, you know, on the verge of a fist fight, especially at a time like this, and these discussions should probably be taking place behind closed doors. It's really bothering me that they're not, and I don't know why. Like, why they're happening in open doors. Some of them, they've been kind of spur of the moment on the bridge. When this happens in, you know, the classic shows, they say, see me in my ready room. Maybe they don't want to break up the pace or something. That could be the reason. But, you know, there's sort of an excuse there. In this one, it was a deliberate planned meeting where they left the corridor, walked to the briefing room, and it didn't shut the door. Like, I don't know. Trust VK, I can see your point, which is why I'm allowed Jack to grow on me. Oh, I haven't had problems with Jack, really. Well, I've had problems with his ethics in those flashbacks we see when he was with Crusher. I really hope those go somewhere and we learn, like, he didn't literally recreate the steps we saw in an earlier TNG episode that led to decades of civil war and absolutely destroyed a planet. Like, not only did he make the royally bad decision in that cold open, it was literally a decision that we have already seen played out, and it was just so objectionably, obviously bad to everyone, including Dr. Crusher. David C. The problem with all the Kurtzman trek is that all the ship's bridges are not descript and have absolutely no character at all. I'm going to counter you here. Where, first off, I'm going to acknowledge, I guess it is Kurtzman's job to ensure a shared look and everything feels in a universe. You know, I'm not going to pin this on Kurtzman, but I'll say a lot of the bridges have been like a random ship, and so they've repurposed usually the Discovery Bridge because it's been available. But that's also what classic Star Trek did. You know, when we didn't see random bridges often, but when we did, they were a motion picture set. They were the Miranda, God, what's it called? The Reliant or the Enterprise A or something. You know, so that's nothing new. But when it has been a significant hero ship, I think they've done that. The La Serena is an incredibly different type of ship. You know, it doesn't even really have a bridge. The Strange New Worlds is very much, you know, a modern take on the a TOS one. Lower Decks, that's a TNG bridge, you know, but so it's sufficiently different, you know, like Voyager, Enterprise D, Enterprise E, they're all kind of roughly similar, but they're different enough that you know it's a different ship. Lower Decks does that. Prodigy's a completely different art style. I think you can say the Titan is rather bland. It does kind of feel like one of the reused sets. I'm sure it's repurposed. In fact, it's felt kind of Discovery to me. I wouldn't be surprised if this is the Discovery Bridge. I might have to check my filming dates, but with Discovery ending after Season 5, maybe they just got rid of the set. So, yeah, I'm going to say where it's mattered, they've had different ships other than here. I also see they're all too dark, shiny, and reflective. Yes, I would say that other than Lower Decks and Prodigy, which is just like completely different art style, the ship interiors are almost entirely too dark or too clinical and shiny. Basically everywhere. Here, let me step back a bit and say they've literally turned off all power that isn't absolutely necessary. This episode should be dark. And I actually think they've lit this bridge quite well in a lot of the other scenes. But yes, I agree. This era has not been a favorite of mine in terms of starship design. By this era, I mean Picard, not Kurtzman, as a whole. Oh, and yes, Jack is also very hot. Yeah, you know, I can see that more. I'll wait till I get a picture of him again, but... Stress VK, I've turned up the brightness on all my TV and other settings so I can better see Picard. I haven't done that. It's not been a problem where I literally can't see what's going on. But this is a bad episode to talk about lighting, because it's supposed to be this dark, because they've turned off all the lights. I mean, let's look at, you know, this... Guinan's bar is a lot better. It's not bright. It is kind of toned down and it's well lit, but I think it fits the aesthetic, you know, of this kind of bar that they're even in the basement of, I think. Oh God, where was I? There we go. I think we were here. Carlos A. Smith, Hellman operations consoles are never far apart. I don't see why they did that. Alright, now I gotta find a shot of the bridge. I don't think I'd say that. I think... You know what? I'm actually gonna do that. Hang on a sec. Star Trek Enterprise D. I think you are having false memories. Come in. It's okay. Hang on. I gotta deal with the... Come in. It's okay. Hey. He's learned he can see under the crack of the door, and he can see another dog under the door. It's okay. It's okay. Enterprise D bridge. Yeah, let's see. I can stream this. There we go. I guess it depends on the shot. No, actually, they are pretty close. God, it's an empty bridge. You really do forget that, I think. I don't know. But, like, Discoveries might be far. I'd have to really dig. It's not worth the time. But, I hope I can get a shot of the bridge, because I don't think it's an inherent flaw. Like, there's not really a reason for them to be close, is there? It was 2 bodies apart. But, like, is there actually a functional reason for them to be close? So, maybe if you just want to create a better view of the window/view screen for the captain. Like, yeah, if you think about the design of this bridge, you've got an amazing view for the captain. Unless maybe ops is, like, right there. The ops and con don't obstruct the view of the bridge. Like, it does make sense. And I don't think there's a functional reason. Yeah, I mean, it's taste, I guess, but... I guess my problem with this bridge is, again, it's, like, all metallic. It's not home. It's a spaceship. You know, if that makes sense. But then again, was the original Enterprise, did that have carpet floors? Dang it, I have to check that now. Star Trek TOS bridge. Yes. Yes, that was carpeted. It had like a gray carpet. Now we know. What you just need is like, you know, one of these sets, but well lit. So, I mean, the Discovery, 32nd Century Fleet. I guess you need, that's what you need. there's a quote in the Doctor Who. It's like a parody Five-ish Doctors reboot where some of the classic Doctors, like their actors, try and get into the 50th anniversary of Doctor Who. It's an amazing, amazing little documentary, but there's a scene where the classic Doctors enter the set for, like, Peter Capaldi's TARDIS, the, like, big, spinny, white one, great TARDIS. And they all complain about, like, the mood lighting and, like, not being able to see anything. It's just such that. It's like a sort of old people moment kind of thing. I'll say again, the Titan that we don't talk about, of course, has seriously fallen in the ranks again as we see it for more and more episodes in this angle. Its top-down view I saw in, like, one of the little Paramount Plus ad things down there. Like, God, it's an ugly shit. But we don't talk about it, so moving on. I would have shot LaForge the moment she walked in the door, because might I remind you, these phasers have stun settings. There's literally no downside to shooting LaForge, and there's so much risk, with a stun setting, of course. I am a bit concerned that Seven just executed this changeling with the Starfleet phaser. Unless you can point me to a Deep Space Nine episode where the stun setting doesn't work on changelings, or some plot development, I really hope they later interrogate this changeling, because they better not have just shot her dead. My problem with the episode, Stress VK, is that for well over half the episode, the leads, except for Bev, have accepted their fate and prepared to die. I wouldn't necessarily say that. Like, Riker's fighting for, like, every minute he can get. I think it's a bit weird how against the plan Riker is, because it's like, what's your other chance here? Someone should have set up and been like, yeah, Riker, this probably is not gonna work, but doing nothing is not gonna work. But, like, what else is there? They literally have nothing, I guess. If there's more communication, they might have thought of the plan earlier, because Beverly spent, you know, this entire episode counting down the contractions to the second, and no one was like, Beverly, how the hell do you know this stuff? But, no, I mean, to me, it's like, what were they gonna do? The TNG episode, where it's the one with Nagilum, and the one where the, like, random ensign dies hilariously. Where Silence has lease. There we go. There's a bit where Picard's like, I'm not gonna be lap rats. Like, I'm gonna set a 20-minute self-destruct, and we're gonna all go contemplate death, because there's nothing we can do. Like, yeah, that didn't bother me. It didn't seem out of place. Going through. This I thought weird as well. Isn't Riker like an exceptional pilot? In Chain of Command, which admittedly Picard was not there for, Jellicoe, is it, needs an amazing pilot. And so he goes to Geordi and be like, Geordi, you're a great pilot. Can you do this mission? And he's like, yes, I can do it. But Riker's the guy you want. He's literally the best pilot on the Enterprise D when Picard, Beverly, and Worf aren't there. And it's not Beverly or Worf. So it did feel kind of weird. Like, unless I'm forgetting some fact that Picard was, like, an amazing pilot, as far as I know, Riker was the best pilot on the Enterprise D when it really came down to it. And, like, yeah, he has some experience flying without sensors. I'd be surprised if Riker didn't. But he also has experience from, like, 60 years ago. That one time he did it in a shuttle. But I seem to also recall Picard did take the helm. Pegasus or something? I don't remember. But there was an episode where Picard took, like, a manual helm. It's just, sorry, I remember my other point. This is the guy who in season 1 had to sit down at the Lost Arena and go, let's see if I remember how to fly a starship. I didn't have the most confidence in Picard. I will say, I actually thought it would kind of be interesting at the start of this episode if they legitimately just killed off the Titan crew. Like, I guess they wouldn't have done it because Jack's kind of integral to the story. But, that would have been interesting if they'd all just died. It's like, yeah, they're dead now, and it continues with, like, Worf and stuff. You know, interesting. I've also just realized this looks kind of like the remastered TOS version of, like, the Gorn ship that's got a weird dick thing underneath it. Moving on. Oh, look, here we go. Who was it who said it? David C., was it? Yeah, this bridge looks a lot better when you light it up. I think I said this before. The best shots of the interiors, in this season, certainly, but also generally, are when there's some massive light outside and it lights up the whole ship. This looks much better. It's still not quite homely, but it's very much a Starfleet design in what this era has established. And it looks so much better. Moving forward. Yep, we've got the Farpoint jellyfish people, because everything's got to be a reference. Oh no, look at that. Okay, so Carlos, they're farther apart than they often are. But I think they're proportionately far apart for the size of this bridge. I'm also thinking now, what was Voyager? Did Voyager have like a TOS style ops and con? Star Trek Voyager bridges. And then did Enterprise even have ops and com? Yeah. Wait, what even is this? Hang on. I can stream this. Ready Room Engineering view screen. Enclosed front. Like, yeah, there wasn't even wasn't like this ops or something? Like con and ops? Ops and con? Like, those are pretty far apart to me, if you ask me. That was a nice shot, Stress VK. Or this one. Yeah. It's weird. You know, it does feel odd as well, complaining constantly that, like, oh, you know, it's too dark, and then they do this really bright message, and what I'm about to say. Voyager had one pilot seat, yes. It did feel, I don't know, like, I didn't see the thematic ties, I guess, with this. This kind of felt just like a very uplifting, bright, happy sort of thing because Star Trek's supposed to be happy and people have complained we're not happy. I guess that was my biggest problem. It didn't feel like it felt like its only purpose was to be happy. There was like a narrative theme I caught up on. It didn't seem to tie to like the rest of the show. And it still has that like weirdly, I'll call it dystopian, even though that's not really what I mean, feel in the backdrop. It was an oddity. Like, as I said, this whole thing was kind of set dressing for what was actually happening with the characters. So I don't think it was really a writing focus. I think they're like, yeah, that works. Let's roll with it and focus on what matters. Which is fair, you know, totally fair enough. But, it's a nice shot, yeah, but it felt, I don't know, out of place. It was odd. I don't really know how to describe it. I loved this bit. At first, I thought they were doing a thing where this wasn't actually the past. It was actually the holodeck taking place after the episode, which I've realized is dumb because they kept saying 5 years earlier. But, God. Beverly's line, seek out new life forms, felt forced. I mean, it is very much the Star Trek speech. Let's acknowledge that the Star Trek speech is actually canonically in Star Trek. It's a speech Zephram Cochrane gave. But, yeah, I loved this whole thing. He did go and see Picard sometime in the past to kind of check him out. You know, I guess he wasn't so sure. And we know a lot more of his motivations now. Like, he's comfortable on the outside, very much like Picard. He's he's afraid of the connections and fitting in and having those, like, relationships that could let him down, that could cause him pain. You know, it's a common thing. But I love this, that he, like, came to Picard. It's just like you know, when Picard gives his line, like, Starfleet's the only family I've ever needed, it's like, oh, you did this to yourself. Like, Jack didn't talk to Picard. You know, Jack doesn't have Picard in his life because he was afraid of that connection, because he did this trepidatious start. He didn't confront him directly. And Picard doesn't have Jack in his life because Picard is a super, he doesn't talk about himself. He's super reserved. He doesn't like talking about his feelings, his personal life. And so when some random stranger talks about that, and then, like, he plays to the crowd, he plays to the Starfleet cadets, and he dodges the question, giving an answer the cadets will like, unknowingly alienating his son from his life. Like, I loved this bit. I love this dynamic. I love that they both don't have each other in their life for the same reason. It's the first time I'm seeing Riker's line, "Don't you see what I see? He's clearly your son." Like, yes, that I see it in this bit, because this is everything Picard struggled to deal with in, like, early TNG. It's why he struggled to get with Beverly. It's why those things took so long. And this is the first thing Jack has done that's like, yeah, that's Picard's kid. Carlos, Rikers, let's boldly go and get the hell out of here. Yeah, it's not as bad as So You're on some sort of Star Trek. But, you know, they said the thing. David C., this particular episode, like one of the episodes earlier this season, was apparently broadcast incorrectly with respect to Black Level. Oh, according to Metalis, he wasn't happy that it happened again. That seems like something you could change pretty easily on a streaming service. I hope the Blu-ray is fixed. I didn't notice anything, which is good. Like, yes, it's black, but they turned off all the lights, so of course it's black. Actually, Strange New Worlds did this, right? In one of their episodes, they turned off all the light when there was that light disease, and it was, like, still super bright. So if that's what it was supposed to be like, I think it actually worked for the better. But, yeah, hopefully it gets fixed for the Blu-ray then. Stress VK, that's good to know. She's quoting Zephram Cochrane. Yes, I think it's the first Enterprise episode, which admittedly, it is a bit like He Said the Thing. At the opening of the NX program, Zephram Cochrane gave a little speech. It's not exactly, but it is the, like, we're gonna go out to see strange new worlds, and we're gonna seek out new, like, aliens and new worlds, and, you know, boldly go. He did the speech. David C., Paramount Plus fixed the issue the next day, Friday. So am I seeing the correct version? Because I did not watch this episode until 10 minutes before going live. Let's see, yada yada. Martin Mathman, yeah, when I watched it, it was so dark, and I have an expensive fancy TV, could barely see more than 50% of the screen. Okay, I think it's fixed. Stress VK, what you were saying earlier about you're adjusting your brightness, this makes more sense now. Yes, I think it's fixed now, just judging from what I've seen. But maybe just do what I do and don't watch the episode until, like, Saturday. Yeah, David C., it was just a screw-up on Paramount Plus part. Yeah, Carlos, I don't think it was intentional post-production changes. Because, one, that'd be kind of weird for the studio to go in and do. Like, that's just kind of weird. But also, they fixed it, which implies it was a mistake. If they didn't fix it, then maybe they wanted it dark for some reason, but no, I think it was just a mistake. But yeah, very glad I waited then. David C., hopefully Kurtzman isn't sabotaging the show. What? Why would you if you're gonna sabotage a show, go do Strange New Worlds, because this show's ending this season, and Discovery's ending next season. Like, if you want to sabotage, go do that. But yeah, I hope Troy does show up in more than just, like, these hologram things. Is there something I don't know? Like, I'm wondering now, God, her name will come to me, I'm sure. Troy's actress. Like, is there a reason? Was she like, I only want to do these little video calls? You know, like, I'm not aware of anything. As far as I know, she's in good health, happy, healthy. Maybe they're just waiting for her to come back later. I guess she has a daughter now, you know, like someone's got to watch Kestra. But you could just say, yeah, Bob, our neighbor, is watching Kestra. Let's see. David C., he's probably just jealous of all the praise Metalis is getting. After Season 2, no, there's a lot Metalis can't do, from what I've seen. Because as far as I'm aware, the team on Seasons 2 and 3 are identical. But yeah, I mean, I think Kurtzman's doing good on, what does he run now, actually? Like, I've liked Discovery, but I liked it better when, what's her face? It's got Byrne in her name. No, Michelle Paradise, that's it, who was, heading Discovery after Season 3. With Kurtzman, yeah, but, I mean, maybe Kurtzman's just better in a management role. There's nothing wrong with that. If he's just not great at actually making the shows, he knows it, and so he steps away, then good for him. Maria Curtis, thank you, Mathman. I knew her name. The problem is I don't say it out loud enough, so it's one I'm like, how do you say Curtis? Stress VK, the space jellies were a little bit of a letdown, is a new life form. Alright. You go out there, like, tens of thousands of light years from home, you see a nebula give birth to beautiful space jellies in, like, a once-in-a-lifetime event, and you're like, bit of a letdown. Jeez. No, my problem was that they directly referenced Farpoint and then show space jellies. Carlos A. Smith, Alex Kurtzman was the one supposedly gave his blessing for Terry to take over. Yeah, David C. sabotaging any future Metalis involvement. I'm sure he was amazed by all the. Just all the. Is my internet died? I'm still streaming. I think. Yeah, no, I mean, I think Kurtzman's doing fine now. You know, he's more just a director. He's got so many plates to juggle. My complaint about Kurtzman, and I don't even think it's his responsibility, is how much overlap there is between seasons sometimes. Like, I'm okay with a finale and premiere on the first day. Like, you're a streaming service. I get that. I just wish there was less sometimes. By all the goodwill from so many YouTubers who has previously hated New Trek. Do people still hate Kurtzman? Like, there are the haters, the people who still hate everything. But does anyone, like, think Kurtzman's doing a bad job nowadays? Because I can't say I've heard any of that. And I still have complaints that a lot of the shows are sharing, specifically the live-action ones. And that's probably Kurtzman's job, is to oversee the connections and all those general themes and stuff, make sure it's still a universe. And I like his general philosophy so far of making the shows feel different, but still part of the one universe. But I'd definitely take him over Rick Berman. Like, he could assemble a great team, but Rick Berman was not a person who should be in charge of a show like Star Trek. A franchise like Star Trek. Just ethically, he shouldn't be. And I will take a less skilled, but more ethically sound producer any day. Carlos, Alex Kurtzman's the man who fell to Earth, was canceled after Season 1. He is not doing anything else right now. Yeah, I mean, I think he's just too busy to actually, like, really get down and dirty with any of the shows or any of the episodes. He's just got way too much to manage. He's doing the businessy stuff. kind of unfortunately, I guess, means every show's really dependent on the strength of its own writers. Like, we kind of know what to expect from them. This season's been a surprise, and we feel like the change between season 1 as opposed to 2 and 3. I feel that. Even if I didn't know the people behind the scenes changed, I'd probably start noticing connections in, like, how those core scenes are handled. I feel that difference. But, I guess, you know, Deep Space Nine and Voyager were kind of relying on their own writing teams. It was a bit different back then, because you'd have people write in scripts, and I think that was still common ground. There were only 2 shows, so Rick Berman could put his fingers in both pies. You know, that was enough to manage. But yeah, if anything, that's the downside. It's just, I think, a lot more disconnected. But, you know, they get Mike McMahon to write some jokes in the other seasons, and I'm sure it's not like everything's behind closed doors, like just complete segregation. The less of him being mentioned, the better our reality is less stressed. Carlos A. Smith, and his Clara C was canceled too. I know nothing about Alex Kurtzman outside of Star Trek. Like, generally, I don't know anything about anyone outside of Doctor Who or Star Trek. But yeah. I wanted to get, so we skipped some things, the changeling going through the pipes. I just saw Seven with a bucket. Come on, Seven, I saw you. There we go. Oh, beautiful. Nailed it. But yeah, this is why I don't want Star Trek 7, because I think you'd carry over too much from Picard. You'd have Seven show up in Janeway, sure. Maybe your life's doing better. I'd probably do that. But I want a clean slate. You know, I'm not against another legacy show. Like Star Trek Janeway. I don't know how I feel about Star Trek 7. It'd feel too much of a disconnect, I think. Star Trek, like, an Enterprise one could be interesting, but I don't know what you do that late in the timeline, because you couldn't do the war, the Romulan War. Like a President Archer series people have talked about, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. We've already got a lot on the backlog. Okay, she shot the guy, and there we go. Yeah, it's like, it looks like a brain, or like if you butchered a cow, you'd throw that on the table, and I don't think a changing should do that. Hang on, can I add like a filter to OBS? Color source? Okay, hang on. The screen's white now. Okay, cancel that. Get rid of that color source. I want to know if I can just like shift the hue of in OBS. Is that it? Ooh, effect filters. Hang on. Add a filter. Color correction? Color key. Let's see. Image mask blend. Crop pad. Let's try color correction. Contrast by... Oh, there we go. Hue shift. Hang on. Ooh, yeah. Saturation up a bit. Bright... Oh god, no. Brightness. Put that back. Put that back. Yeah. And then let's turn the contrast up a bit. Oh god, no. Zero. Zeros. Okay. There we go. See, that's much closer to Odo. You know what I mean? Like, I'd change a bit more. Like, I'd probably make those darker spots a bit darker, the lighter spots a bit different. Like, this was basic. But this, I think, looks a lot more like Odo than what... Yeah, look at that. Look at that. That looks so much better. See what I mean? There's a story reason, but, Ooh, how do I get rid of that effect? Yeah, there's a story reason, apparently, behind the change. But you see what I mean? It's not that far from Deep Space Nine. It's just a color issue. Shush-VK, the main Kurtzman criticism I hear is about the addition of new gender and sexual orientations and not enough Kirk types. That feels like the hater group I mentioned before. That I don't really care what they hate, because they're gonna hate everything. David C. Well, also, if that is your biggest, like, the most vocal criticism about Alex Kurtzman, then he is doing a perfect job, in my opinion. David C. I think New Trek sacrificed coherent stories for agenda-driven messages. Trek has always been progressive, but never at the expense of good writing. On the contrary, I think, if anything, they've stepped away from those, so to say, agenda-driven messages. I also don't think people actually have a problem with agenda-driven messages. I think when people complain that something's preachy, for example, it's because it's not being handled well, or it's a discussion that's so high surface level, it's not even a discussion. Again, to use Doctor Who as an example, there's a very negatively received episode of the 13th Doctor called Orphan 55 that's basically a climate change episode. And, like, the whole, like, it's a far future where Earth is like a tomb world, basically. And the discussion about climate change is basically, climate change is bad. We shouldn't let it happen. We should do something about that. And, like, people don't hate it because it's talking about climate change. They hate it because, yes, I know. I've grown up my entire life knowing that the world could end in my lifetime. And this is, like, below elementary school level discussion of climate change. And that's where people complain. It's very surface level. It's not really saying anything. It's being safe. Whereas, you know, in Star Trek, Doctor Who, Drumhead had sort of an agenda. God, what's it called? The black and white people in TOS. Let this be your last battlefield. That had an agenda. Like, you know, most of the good episodes of Star Trek have an agenda, so to say, but they're actually written into very solid, cohesive stories. Yeah, and I at this point, I would definitely not make that claim at a base level. I would definitely love more stories like that. That's something we've lost when we've left episodic television, is those little one-offs that are real emotional or real big, or those kind of like Drumhead episodes, those The Visitor, those, I don't know, those little one-offs. But yeah, that's the claim I would make. The sun. Yes, I'm sorry, I made the screen white. I know most of you people probably use dark mode. ShushVK, the changelings are really gross. Yeah, that's what, I don't like how gross they are, because they're so, it's our insides. That's what bothers me, you know. The orange is a little more appealing. Yeah, it's not perfect, but I literally spent like 20 seconds in OBS to shift the color of the, but it was so much closer to Odo, you know. You'd make it a little different, not literally just a hue shift, but that's it. Carlos A. Smith, Kurtzman has described Trek as a platform on video. Yes, he has. I disagree with him there, but I also think the writers of their individual shows don't see their individual shows as a platform. I think that's a common problem since, like, the MCU is turning, like, the IPs to a franchise for the sake of it. But I don't think that's trickling down into the shows. I think the writers of each individual show are very much trying to make an entertaining Star Trek and not a comedy or an adult drama, for example. David C. Well, arguably, you could say as well, Carlos, that's Kurtzman's job. Kurtzman's job isn't to make the shows. Kurtzman's job is to make the shows happen. So, you know, to play devil's advocate, you could say, well, yeah, Kurtzman is going to look at the Star Trek as a platform because his job is to make shows happen, not to make shows. You know. David C., and for what it's worth, I'm a liberal Democrat. Yeah, what's that in reference? Oh, yeah. I think if anyone wants a real deep dive into that kind of storytelling, how these shows, these sci-fis, or shows in general that have historically been very liberal, like left-leaning, and told stories that are like, oh, yeah, like it was very good, and it had liberal messages, racism bad, like climate change bad. You know, Star Trek's told these stories, and does it nowadays, and people complain about it. Highly recommend JXC's Please Don't Run Away 5-hour Doctor Who essay, The Fall of Doctor Who. Even if you're not into Doctor Who, it's just such a fantastic essay on, it's basically that. It's a very long-running, beloved franchise that has recently been falling out of popularity and was run by a guy who a lot of people think did an awful job. And it's a very good deep dive, but also respectful. And it's not just like, oh, Chibnall sucks. It's even like, this is how I think you could do better. And he's some things like, this is why I think Chibnall's great. Chris Chibnall's an amazing ideas guy. You know, and he even talks about, like, Moffat, the guy before him. You know, these are some things he started to mess up that are continuing. But it's just a phenomenal deep dive. Like, it's 5 hours deep dive into, like, what makes shows work, but also specifically for these Doctor Who, Star Trek things. And it's also hilarious. Of course, it's better if you've seen Doctor Who, but I highly recommend that video essay, and that channel in general. Stress VK, I really like an arc for Grey, because it felt like an allegory for someone trans realizing their true selves. Yeah, I don't want to get sidetracked too much on Grey here. Grey's weird, because if I have a complaint about Adira being the non-binary storyline, it's that, you know, you shouldn't need that in the 32nd century. It's very much, some things are more important than Star Trek. I have talked about this a lot before, but it's very much a story for what people now need to hear, who are non-binary, or even who aren't, and need to know how to deal with people who are, which sounds kind of callous, but, you know, they need to learn this as a thing. But Grey, so, like, the ideal non-binary storyline of the 32nd century is that it never comes up. You know, everyone's a they, them, until they say otherwise. Like, if you go to, like, a university, especially in a more liberal town, I've lived in places and been in places more liberal than Star Trek with those scenes. Like, everything at UW and most things at Western Washington University were, like, you put your names, put your pronouns. Everyone was like, hi, I'm Nathan, they, them, I'm your resident advisor or something. That's what it'd be. But Grey is that, because not once is it ever mentioned that Grey is trans. I was like, if it weren't for the marketing, I wouldn't know Grey was trans. I spent a lot of the season wondering if Grey was gonna become, like, Grey didn't know they were trans yet, and they were gonna have some transition arc. There is one reference in season 4 to Grey's transition, but it's also in a context where even knowing he's trans, it could also just be a Trill thing. Like, he became joined, or it was some alien thing. Like, if you don't know about trans people, Grey does nothing, but he's also kind of the ideal because of that. So it's, like, Grey's arc isn't really there, because the show's not showing it, but that's the ideal. It's a very weird scenario where, like, I don't complain about Adira, because I recognize some things are more important than Star Trek. But it feels weird kind of having those opposite things of, like, well, Grey's not enough, but Adira's too much. I don't know. Carlos A. Smith, but they were subtle references, not directed in your face. Oh god, which one? What were we talking about? It has started from the corporate side, to enter our hobbies. God, what was I talking about? I meant to read your comments before moving forward. Yeah, I don't know of any, if Paramount really does any corporate meddling in Star Trek. I think Paramount kind of just lets it get on, at least so far. And I think Kurtzman, now that there's so many spinning plates, just kind of lets the shows do whatever, and things still run by him, but he makes sure, like, okay, you and you aren't going to do the same thing at the same time. You're all kind of feeling Star Trek-y. You're looking, you're different enough, but feel like one universe. That's Kurtzman's job. And I think that's working, you know. And also, like, he did a lot of leading of seasons 1 and 2 of Discovery, but, like, season 1 of Discovery was pretty much never gonna work with how many behind the scenes, like, God, the Discovery he must have inherited, the amount of revisions and, like, everything that went through it. It could have been better, I'm sure, but that was a bad start. And then season 2 was basically existed to get Discovery to what Kurtzman wanted. And so, yeah, it's an absolute dumpster fire that solely exists for that purpose. David C., thank you very much for $20. Great channel, one of my favorites. You always do such deep dives. This is why I think you should go watch JXC, but thank you very much. Now I actually have to finalize Google AdSense, because I think that puts me over the $100. But yes, thank you so much, David C. And thank you also, I don't know if you were here at the start, for bringing my attention that the subtitles of this season have spoilers. Because otherwise, I would be analyzing this bit at the end with subtitles on. Agreed. Thank you, Stress Free K. Let's see, was there anything else? I feel like there was something I wanted to go back to that I am now forgetting. Also, hang on. No, this is critically important. I need to get this shot. Let's go. Hang on. There we go. First off, is this an Eagle Moss model spray painted gold? Maybe. But second, does anyone remember earlier on when Riker was like, why do you have so many Enterprise Ds? And that woman was like, oh, no one wants the fat ones. Well, here's the chunky boy right there. No one can tell me that they didn't have any Enterprise Cs. This is the chunk boy. This is the fat Enterprise C. Like, look at it. Come on, you're telling me the Enterprise D is the fat one? Ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. The Enterprise C is literally what if the Enterprise D but chonk, because it's less advanced. There we go. But I think I've got my paycheck, time to go. No, I think I'm probably run to a natural end of what I was going to talk about till I hit end stream and instantly remember something else. Oh no, I'd say another good bit, like, even though I didn't like Captain Shaw being a dick, like, they set that whole thing about Locutus, you know, his outburst at the bar, serves its own purpose. You know, Shaw comes in, shows he's a dick, it shows Shaw's motivations, and it disrupts family time. I think, you know, that's good. It's a fully functional scene that serves its purpose, and then it comes back because actually you just learned he was a very good engineer. And you need, like, an old-timey engineer to do this thing. So, you know, it's another instance of something that entirely serves its purpose, but then came back, which is really good. And it feels clever. You know, it's good writing. It's fun as an audience member to be like, oh, yeah, I remember. Like, I didn't even notice that. I did learn that Shaw was a great engineer. And so it's real weird how poorly structured and written Season 2 was, and how good Season 3 is. Because, like, it's not a breakout season, like, you know, so far. It's, you know, but it's, like, structurally a great one. Like, it's hard to imagine a structurally better season so far, and, like, a mechanically better show. It's night and day. If if I didn't know better, I would have said that they really sat back and went, all right, what didn't people like about season 2? What do we think didn't work? And then went, okay, let's try and fix it. It's exactly what I want Strange New Worlds to do. Like, if Strange New Worlds made this kind of step between season 1 and 2, it might be the new best Star Trek. I don't think it's gonna, from what I've seen in the marketing. I think they're doing the opposite and doubling down on what didn't work for me. But it's hard to believe it was made by the same people, let alone simultaneously. Actually, this is something I thought about doing. I want to see what the Reddit is saying about this episode. Star Trek Reddit. Because there are certain things I think people might complain about, and I want to see them articulate it. Whoa. Top comment on Star Trek Reddit right now is okay, but I actually like Captain Shaw. Hang on, derailed here. He's an asshole I love to hate to love. Okay. You just don't know that deep down he has the potential to be amazing and he's too messed up for that to happen. It's infuriating in the best way because it's fun to watch him annoy the protagonists, but super satisfying to see him do something good or otherwise revealing he has more to him, working with Seven, his breakdown on the holodeck. I don't necessarily think he needs a redemption arc, but he could be exactly the kind of anti-hero Star Trek could center a sword around. This is exactly what I wanted. I want someone I cannot disagree with more to articulate why they have their opinion. I can stream this even. Actually, here we go. I'll throw this in chat for you guys. So I want to dissect this. So deep down, he has the potential to be amazing. I agree. I think if he wasn't a dick, he'd be a great Starfleet officer. I think before Wolf 359, he probably was. An ensign, sure, but like maybe lacking experience, but yeah. And he's too messed up for that to happen. Completely agree here. It's infuriating in the best way, so, opinion, because it's fun to watch him annoy the protagonist. So this is just going to be a disagreement. I said before, I don't understand why you'd want this. I don't think it's fun to watch someone have someone else be a dick to them. I don't think that. But it might just be that, like, core preference. But super satisfying to see him do something good, otherwise revealing he has more to him. I think this is the professionalism that, yes, I think they are injecting more of into the show. That, like, yeah, he really disagrees with Seven, and, like, everyone here, well, I don't say everyone, Picard and Seven like each other, but these people don't want to be working together, but they're like, we need to work together, and we're Starfleet, so that's what we're gonna do. Yeah, I like seeing that. I like seeing competent professionals be competent professionals. But this is actually working against him for me, because the fact he knows he's a dick, and this probably isn't a new revelation to him. He seems like someone who's wallowing in the fact he's not a good person. He knows he's not a good person, and that's been the case for a while. In the universe, the Star Trek universe he should be in, I think he should have had that dealt with. He should have gone to a counselor, or Starfleet should have forced him to go to a counselor. Or in some time in the last 20-something years, this should have been addressed, because it's not today. I think Star Trek, modern Star Trek, what they're doing with it is showing this is how you get to utopia. And I think what classic Star Trek did is, this is utopia, you'll get there one day. If anything, classic Star Trek was actually worse, because it said, how you get to utopia is the aliens arrive. Something completely external that you have no control over needs to happen, and then humanity will get to utopia. So I think both philosophies are definitely valid. I actually like that Star Trek in the modern sense is doing something different. It's showing you how, not what. I just think they can show you how. Like, my problem with Shaw's time scale. If this was a Deep Space Nine episode even, late TNG, great, because it takes time to deal with trauma. It's that I just think he should have had that time. And I think the world should have learned more about the Borg that we've just seen it hasn't been. It hasn't been learning that Borg drones are victims and they're not the people who were assimilated. And that's what's frustrating me. Mathman, I do like Shaw, though. The Wolf 359 connection was unnecessary, though. Yeah, you're so tired of hearing about Wolf 359 and Locutus. It was a tiny part of Star Trek. It wasn't, though. Because Wolf 359 was the first time in 100 years, since Paraxis exploded, that the Federation, one, had a serious threat. The Cardassian War, the Cardassians were pushovers. It was, the Federation could so easily have won. We never even heard it referenced until, Deep Space Nine. Two, it was the first major loss. 11,000 people died and 40 starships died for the first time since the Klingon War and Discovery in 100 years again. It was the first time in living memory, unless you're a Vulcan, that the Federation had any sort of serious threat from the outside. The Romulans had gone underground, the Klingons were our allies, and the Federation, Klingon, and Romulans were the most technically advanced people out there. It wasn't until War 359 we started meeting the Borg, the Dominion, actual threats, and it had serious effects on Starfleet. In the 100 years between Undiscovered Country and Wolf 359, Federation star technology had barely advanced. Its starship's design had stayed the same to the Enterprise D. It was peacetime, it was calm, it was a time of peaceful expansion and connectivity, and diplomacy, and then the Borg show up. And in the 10 years between Wolf 359 and the end of the Dominion War, more had changed than in the previous 100 years. Anybody at Wolf 359 will never forget that. It should be the 9/11. It was the wake-up call of hey, you're not the king of the hill anymore. You've got enemies and you can be touched. Let alone the fact that it was 16 light years from Earth, the capital of the Federation, right next to Vulcan and Doria. It's a huge deal in the Star Trek world. David C., he's definitely going to have a great redeeming arc. I think he's going to die. Or someone like Picard's going to die for him. Actually, thematically, that would work. Locutus dies to save Captain Shaw, and that's the moment he finally leaves Wolf 359. I really hope they show him get better, though, because, Star Trek... you don't want to see Picard die for a dick like that. But at the same time, Picard should 100% be ready to die for a dick like that. That's what Starfleet is.
Nathan, I need you to repeat that last sentence, because I heard something, and
what?
It has to, I must have misheard it.
You don't want
die for a dick like that, and I feel like I require context.
You don't want Picard to die for a dick like that, but at the same time, Picard should be ready to die for a dick like that.
Dick as in a person?
Yeah, yes.
Or person as in they're an asshole? Or dick
oh
as
yeah,
a
it's a guy who's an asshole. I see what you're getting at now.
Because there were 3 ways they could do. Die for a detective, die for an asshole, or die for being gay.
God, that would be a twist. Picard gets executed because he's gay. God, that'd be a direction to take Star Trek.
was gonna make popcorn, but then I remembered you're streaming, so I'm gonna go upstairs.
That'd be a good idea. Thank you for not making popcorn. Stress VK, honestly, I think Shaw is more of mediocre Starfleet officer. He knows the regs, but he's not exceptional like Seven, Picard, and Riker, so he overcompensated with dickishness. But Starfleet shouldn't be that. I've talked about this before. Starfleet should be the physical embodiment of a perfect morality. Not even that it should. That's what Starfleet has been. Classic Star Trek set up a Starfleet that is the physical embodiment of all these amazing ideals. So what you have is, if you ever touch Starfleet, if you ever taint Starfleet, the effect is that you're directly tainting those ideals, because Starfleet has been set up as the embodiment of these ideals. If there wasn't such a strong connection between the two, I think you could do it. And that's why in the past, every time you've bent Starfleet, it has to go back. You know, you have to show Utopia needs work. You have to show it's hard to always keep up your morality, but that it can be done. That's the important thing, is you have to show it can be done. Otherwise, there's no point in trying. Or you could put that message out. Shosvike, I do like the sausage making, though. Like the Klingon Wars with the Federation helped to explain how they could possibly later coexist as semi-allies in TNG. That was all undiscovered country to me. I don't know if that's what you mean, but no, it was Paraxis. It was something weird I didn't realize till later, because I didn't watch the motion picture, like that era, until after everything else. I didn't realize that, because I knew what the Kitamura curves were. I didn't realize that was actually like a movie, and that, you know, we actually see the Kitamura chords. Like, Star Trek VI is an allegory for the Soviet Union's gone. Like, what does America do now, I guess, kind of thing. I mean, it works even more, because, like, what between the collapse of the Soviet Union and 9/11, like, as I understand it from the people who lived through, you know, 9/11, it was like the wake-up call where America was untouchable until that point. Like, we were the only superpower left. We won, basically. It's like the Soviets were gone, the Nazis were gone, and then just no one touched us until 9/11, and it was a wake-up call, like, oh, hey, we can't just sit around on our butts and enjoy a nice country. You know, where America was not exactly the United Federation of Planets, but that's what it was. It was, you know, the Romulans went underground, the Klingons signed a peace treaty with us, and then there was peace for 100 years until Wolf 359, when Starfleet realized, oh, our ships are 100 years out of date, and we're absolutely helpless against any greater power. A comment on this. I love Shaw. He's a great character, and he has yet to be really wrong about anything. I will give him that. I think it's actually to the show's detriment, where I feel like I'm supposed to be against Shaw, but I'm on his side in, like, all his arguments. Just somewhat misguided in his interpersonal approach. I laughed out loud at the bit where he was talking to Seven and told her he was wrong about her. Yeah, I mean, it's just opinions, I guess. He knows who and what he is, and I can respect that. That's interesting, because I very much think he knows who and what he is, and he doesn't respect that. Like, I think he's playing up his dickishness because he thinks he's a massive dick. It's just, I don't think he should be doing that. So long after his trauma and in the utopia he should have grown up in. Like, yes, he also went through the Dominion War and stuff, which was, again, like 20 years ago. It's that I think his society should be much more set up to catch this sort of thing and help him through it, is my complaint, really. Yeah, I'm looking through the comments now on Reddit. I did this. No, this joke I did like. Perhaps we should talk about the elephant in the room. When did you lose the hair? I liked that joke. I'm liking the comedy. I'd say in this season, I'm liking the comedy. It doesn't feel like you got Mike McMahon in to write some jokes where they didn't belong. Like, there have been a lot of things that make me chuckle in this. That's good. Yeah, I think Shaw, if you really want to show that Shaw's not just a dick, he needs to start saying Commander 7. Because of the scene where she's one up his face is like, yeah, she calls call me Commander 7 out of respect. Like, I think he needs to start saying Commander 7. Or at least stop saying Commander Hansen. Like, maybe that's too subtle. Because a lot of people just say Commander, but I'm also afraid that, yeah, his final line, if he dies, will be like, goodbye, Commander 7, is, this user points out. Yeah, someone else caught it. Their entrance to 10 Forward has different hits on a rewatch. This is a place of real significance for me, but I don't suppose you've ever... I haven't, no. Then yeah, it's like, well, would you like to have a drink with me? He looks around and is like, sure. You know, it's... Yeah, that's the sort of thing that's going to be fun to go back and look through. Yeah, it's all positive, of course. I wish Season 3 was stretched out for 3 decades. Yeah, I mean, Picard's finally gotten good. It took him 3 years, but at least they did get there. Yeah, well, also, that's the thing, where 7 was, like, out of respect. Yeah, that's what she should have done with the first time Captain Shaw was like, hey, you should go by Commander Hansen. She should have gone like, fuck no, I won't. Like, that's the time you use your F-bomb. Hang on. Someone's called out, on Ensign Foster's service record, not sure who this is, I think it's one of the background people, it says she was born in 2363 and graduated the academy in 85. He is 37 to 38 years old and has been an ensign for nearly 16 years. Move over, Harry Kim, we have a new contender. Another thing someone pointed out is people complain about Harry Kim, but like, the entire crew of the NX Enterprise never got a promotion, except maybe to Paul. Like, Hoshi, God, don't even remember his name. Mayweather, like, ensigns throughout the entire Romulan War. But yeah, I mean, it's also positive on the Reddit, but I'm glad I saw that person. That's what I want. I want to find some of these people who I couldn't fundamentally disagree with more and have them tell me why they think what they do. That's why I want. I want to understand, and that's why you should go watch JXE's 5-hour Doctor Who video. Google it. Doctor Who, Fall of Doctor Who, JXE 5-hour Doctor Who. You'll find it. It's like this, but way better, and about Doctor Who. Stress VK, I'd be surprised that after 7 pointing out the respect clue, that Shaw will still disrespect her next episode. I won't be surprised, because again, they could be holding off the payoff till way later, but I think they need it if they want me to start seeing anything else in this character other than a dick who knows they're a dick and is being a dick for the sake of being a dick. Like, this is the time where he needs to start moving on. Like Picard and Riker, yes, they got him into this mess. They also just saved his life. And we know now, unequivocally, that he knows what he is doing is wrong. And to have a Starfleet captain know what they are doing is wrong, when they could so easily change it and keep doing the wrong, is just too much. it'd be too much for me. But no, I mean, that's kind of a lot negative at the end, but that he's the exception. Like, I'm enjoying this season. I'm gonna text my uncle and be like, you know what? No, it's actually good. I'm liking it. I like season 3. I think these characters are going to have very satisfying endings. By God, please call the episode ... must come to an end. It's the correct example. It's the correct title, but it'll be like the cozy, even if they die, like, it's the ending that they finally deserve. Like, All Good Things was very much they're just going to keep on going. They're going to keep on keeping on. It wasn't really an ending, which, you know, fitting for its time, definitely. Nemesis, I actually quite like Nemesis, but other than a notable exception, it's not really an ending. Like, they were kind of breaking up, you know, Riker and Troy were going to the Titan. Worf was already gone, but this is like, it's been, you know, 20 years. We're not even going to have these actors around for longer, and especially not as actors. And, you know, the people who actually grew up with them, like, you know, my dad or probably a lot of this audience, is like, yeah, it's time for them to get an ending. And I'm confident from what I've seen. I've got the faith in this team to do those character beats. David C., I don't think Shaw's going to keep doing the wrong. Certainly not for the whole season. I think it needs to start now. At least I hope he doesn't keep doing that. No, that's the thing now. I have faith in this writing team to do those character beats. And Shaw is not going to be the same person by the end. He might become a different person 5 minutes before the end of the season, but it's gonna be satisfying when he does. And looking back, I'm not gonna remember that he was like a dick the whole time. I'm gonna remember his very satisfying, not even redemption arc, but just like, I'm gonna be a better person now. Mathman, I was rooting for Shaw to throw Picard in the brig. Yeah, he should have. I don't know why Picard wasn't in the brig. I can't say I'm rooting for it, but I was confused why he wasn't. And Just VK, yep, he's already too much for me, but at least Shaw doesn't annoy me as much as Neelix did. I never got that from Neelix either. But, like, at least he's not smoking on the bridge like Rios. Like, Rios was an incompetent captain. Like, he was a bad captain from being a captain perspective. Captain Shaw, is a capable captain, but he's bad because of, like, who he is, I guess. And I would take Shaw over Rios any day as a captain. David C., I remember distinctly sitting down to watch episode 1 of season 1 when it first came out. I assume you mean The Next Generation. But yeah, no, I probably watched it for the first time 7 years ago. So actually, the time between me starting Next Generation is now would have been like the runtime of the Next Generation. That can't be. No, that like thereabouts. That's probably right. 7-8 years. So the time between Farpoint and Nemesis hasn't even elapsed for me. But I don't know. A lot happened in that time for me. Like, that was going through high school and college and here, and, you know, we now have the modern stuff. We've moved so far beyond Rick Berman's era in classic Star Trek that I'm like, no, let's give them a nice little ending. You know, we're already kind of moving past them chronologically. Yeah, we're moved past them chronologically. Post-Nemesis content is no longer some, like, pipe dream. We've got it. We're done. Like, the kind of now of Star Trek is here. It's like the 2501, and that's the time that the TNG character should be getting an ending. Not to discount the 32nd Century Discovery, but, like, Lower Decks, Prodigy, Picard, even the Supernova, the Kelvin timeline stuff, is now. It's post-Nemesis. Like, that's where Star Trek is active. Mathman is someone who grew up with TNG Deep Space Nine Voyager. TNG got a very satisfying ending with all good things. The final scene was perfect. Picard, well, I'm not going to spoil it for Alex, but don't need some kind of good send-off for these characters that I keep hearing. That's fine. That's opinions. I definitely would not complain if All Good Things was just the end forever. I mean, you had the movies, you know, so I guess for me, it wasn't never like the end. I understand Generations was really soon after All Good Things, but I like that. I like the endings. They're gonna keep on keeping on. Endings like, you know, Deep Space Nine or Steven Universe can be uncomfortable, even if they're emotionally satisfying, or like they can be bittersweet. But I also think that you can definitely do an incredibly satisfying ending for all these characters, other than All Good Things and Nemesis, and I'm not gonna say no to that. If it's good Star Trek and satisfying, if it's anything like how Q ended, which I hated everything about getting to that scene, but I remember season 2 of Picard fondly because of those key scenes, like the sort of what you'd write in the history books that like actually affects canon. I liked that. And so I think they're going to pull that off again for season 3 because they have so far. And I think it's already a better plot. Even if it becomes a dumpster fire at the end, it's still better, which means this is going to be a better season. But yeah, I also don't really want to say goodbye to like those old characters as a whole. Like I'm down for Star Trek Janeway. I'm doubtful because it'd be weird to have Janeway and Prodigy and Janeway, but I absolutely use this characters, but I'm like the storyline. Carlos A. Smith. Well, we are now at the midway point for the series. No, this is episode 4, so after the next episode, it's the midway. Let's see how much it can stay relevant. And Mathman, yes, just my personal opinion. I know everyone's experience is different. Yeah, I mean, and for all we know, like, Riker could show up again, like, directing and stuff. In Lower Decks, it might even make sense for Riker to make an appearance. I'm sure we'll always get little nods, like, you know, Leonard Nimoy appeared in an episode of Discovery through archival footage. But for a lot of these people, I mean, it'd feel weird if Riker gets a satisfying ending in this show that he then comes back later. I think there is a feeling that we're not really going to see the TNG crew after this, and we're definitely not going to see them after now. Like, you know, maybe you'll get LaForge in Lower Decks, but it's kind of weird to, you know, be like, hey, LeVar, you know, you want to come for a little thing in Lower Decks? It'd be like, well, no, I had an incredibly satisfying conclusion in season 3 with my family, who all did the same conclusion, literally in LeVar Burton's case. I think I'm done. But let's see what the future holds. I do say though, I don't know if you've noticed, but people are talking about Janeway a lot. This episode mentioned Janeway, like, because the Hirogen were here for some reason. Like, you know, Seven mentions Janeway getting her into Starfleet a few times. Obviously, Prodigy mentions Janeway a bit. Like, Janeway has been a more and more frequent name drop. And it can't help but feel, especially with the comments like Kate Mulgrew makes, and she's also been getting more active in Star Trek, like, a Star Trek Janeway series does kind of almost feel set up. Like, you've got that weird portal thing that the Borg are guarding in Picard. You're setting up chess pieces for a year after now. They've loved referencing Voyager. This modern Star Trek loves referencing Voyager, and it does kind of feel like if you knew like, if there's a Star Trek Janeway and my kid gets into Star Trek, they're gonna watch, like, Picard, Prodigy, Lower Decks, and be like, oh yeah, they were building up to Star Trek Janeway. Just VK, I feel like Section 31 show could intermingle with Voyager, TNG, to say Smine crewmates from time to time as guest stars for a few episode arcs. Please don't. Unless, like, they are fighting tooth and nail against them. I know it happens. In the books, Trip and Bashir both join Section 31. I don't know why Trip does it. I know Bashir does it to kind of dismantle them from the inside, but I've never liked either. You could do it with Bashir, like, actively trying to dismantle Section 31, but, I can't see Worf in any way working with him. It even feels kind of weird that, like, the Boimler clone would go to Section 31. Yeah. I also don't think it'll be a happy show. Because the Guardian wants Section 31 to correct the timeline. Did he? I spent so long. Section 31, and spy shows in general, but especially Section 31, lends itself so naturally and so well to every complaint I've had about Star Trek shows that I can't see how I'd enjoy it. Or, like, you could have Michael Yeoh. George O's learned her lesson. She's going back to try and reform Section 31. It'd be weird to build up to the spy show and have it be that. But hey, I try not to judge the series before we get there. I just will say I would be amazed if I like it. Carlos A. Smith, potential series, yes, but the money may not be there. Paramount is reducing their budget currently. But Michael Yeoh's a big name. Like, and Michael Yeoh very much wants to do it. It'd feel weird that they wouldn't do it. You know what I mean? Like, I guess if they really see loads of people not wanting it and decide not to make it, that could be a thing, but I feel they'd want to get something. Michael Yeoh wants to be a part of a Paramount show. I think they would run with that. Like, I really don't know anything about her, but everything I hear from her outside of Star Trek is that she's a huge name, and people love the fact that she was in Star Trek. So, just if anything gets cut, I think it's Academy. Stress VK, it feels like Raffi and Worf are already Section 31. I think Worf is. He's working with the organization, but I still struggle. I sound like a broken record here, saying I can't see how you'll pull it off, then they pull it off. But I cannot see how you could have Worf work with an organization like Section 31 or any, like, spy organization, given what we know about him. I actually want to bring it up. I'll circle back to Worf because I see some more comments. Lol, the Boimler clone. Man, I love Lower Decks. And Carlos, Michael Yeoh, Michelle Yeoh was too expensive as of now. Her stardom is expanded. But if she wants to do it, like, if she really wants to, I imagine she'd take lower pay, because it's like, I mean, look at LeVar Burton. If he wanted to make more money, he wouldn't have done Reading Rainbow. But he did.
Reading Rainbow.
He did Reading Rainbow because he believed in it and he wanted to do it.
Sorry, I have a sixth sense for memeing.
Yeah. Well, if Michael...
If you'd said Bill Nye, you would have just heard the Bill Nye. Boo, boo, boo.
If Michael Yeoh...
I could see Bill Nye on Star Trek.
They should, because he's great friends with the Doctor from Voyager. And they do stuff together. So I kind of want Bill Nye on Star Trek. But
they should just make his name like it's Bill Nye, but it's not Bill Nye. So it's like, oh yes, this is our science guy, William Nitrous.
If Michael Yeoh really loved Star Trek, then, like, she'd go. I'm sure she's not gonna, like, get kicked out of her house because she took a lower paying job. It's happened before. Doctor Who's got a character, the Ronnie, who was a massive name and went to go do Doctor Who. And people are like, why the hell are you doing Doctor Who? You could go make big American Hollywood things. She's like, yeah, Doctor Who was fun. She's like, I like being the Ronnie. I want to go to my Welsh quarry. Section 31 is very human-centered. They don't have non-humans working in their ranks. I don't know if that's true, because their Federation, you know, any Federation species could work it. They've got Romulans, like working with them, but, that's actually a point, though, for them making Section 31, is it's cheaper, if they really want to make it human-centric. But you do have a point. I've already got a photographic memory for that stuff, but I can't recall a Section 31 officer who wasn't human. Let's see. Oh, yeah, circle back to Worf. I talked before about not really liking his pessimistic view of the world. But I think, you know, I still think it's a bit pessimistic. But I also think it's much more in line with how he was in TNG and Deep Space Nine than I originally gave him credit for. Like, he talks about, you know, I've come to realize there's no good and no evil. There's only, like, you know, what you believe in or whatever. I'm like, well, that's not really a change, is it? Like, honor, I don't think has ever really been about good and evil. I don't think Worf has ever really done that. Like, you know, Worf will talk to, you know, the Jem'Hadar and be like, you know, in another time or like another life, you know, I'd love to, you know, spar with you, or, you know, he sees the similarities. In the Klingon Civil War, you know, I definitely think he was like that. Like, you're eating, you're drinking at the capital with like the Duras people or whatever, but, you know, he's moved away from that. He's learned more what Klingon culture actually is. And so, yeah, I mean, there is no good and evil, only like a cause you believe in and like fight for it. Surely that's as good a definition of an honor system as any. And it does still feel a bit like, you know, if you take that and roll with Section 31, like, I don't know, that still does feel dishonorable. And it's like, well, surely at this point, you're not working with your own system of beliefs and honor. You're like, I guess it doesn't matter. I can do anything now, which would then become my problem with it. But again, let's wait to hear what he has to say. Because I'm not even totally against, like, the threat is so big that I had to work with them. I'm not even against that. It's just, you know, you need a reason. Carlos A. Smith, they were created to protect humanity. This is going back from Star Trek Enterprise. Technically, they were created as part of the original Starfleet Charter. I guess we don't know, because we can't really read that charter, but yes, they might have been created to protect Starfleet, but they were then interwoven, presumably through their own nefarious methods, into protecting the Federation. Like, in Deep Space Nine, I think they're very clear that Section 31 exists to protect the Federation. Not Earth, but the Federation. And so, post-Enterprise, I don't think they'd have anything against a non-human working at Section 31. You could be trying to say something like maybe humans are the only race that could see like that, but a Vulcan can logic themselves into anything. We've seen Vulcan extremists. Like, we've seen Romulans working with Section 31, and if Section 31 is prepared to have a Romulan agent, then why wouldn't they have an Andorian? You know? I honestly think we only see humans because it was cheaper to produce humans. You know what I mean? You don't have to put them in expensive makeups. Not Starfleet, not the Federation, just humanity. Cite your source is what I'm going to say, because I feel like... I mean, you know what? Carlos, let's just go to Memory Alpha for this. Star Trek Memory Alpha. because maybe I'm wrong, and it's like, yeah, they're just to protect humanity, but it feels weird that the Starfleet higher-ups who know about Section 31 would be cool with that. Like, originally, yeah, in Enterprise, of course, it was to protect humanity, but surely protecting the Federation is protecting humanity. What page am I on? Memory Alpha's home. Star Trek Section 31, Memory Alpha. I thought this stream wasn't going to be as long as the others. Isn't that funny? Let's go down. Section 31 is an organization which claimed to protect the security interests of United Earth and later the United Federation of Planets. Here you go. I will even let you see this. During the so that's Discovery, their division, well, by the 24th, they were a rogue organization. So that is Saints of Imperfection, Inquisition, so that's Discovery, and loads of Deep Space Nine. So yes, I'm going to go ahead and say they did protect the Federation after Earth joined the Federation. Original Starfleet Charter. Okay, I forgot the Obsidian Order existed. I need to go through Deep Space Nine again. I really do. It's such a good show. Yeah, I mean, just reading this paragraph and be like, yep, that's not what Discovery did, and like all these citing sources. And yeah, once you get down, this is all Enterprise. It's not till you actually get to the Discovery era we really start citing it. Oh, well, hang on, where's Terra Prime? Yeah. So I'm going to take that as my site. Yep, I agree. United Earth first, then the Federation. Absolutely agree. I'd be interested. I don't want a 32nd century Section 31, but I'd be kind of interested if they made it that far, what they did. Or would they have, like, split? Would there be two of them? One protecting Earth, one protecting the Federation? I wouldn't mind a story like that, actually, that kind of highlights why Section 31 doesn't work. But I don't like the idea that they lasted that long. But yeah, there we go. There's my source. But yeah, I think I'm going to draw it to a conclusion now. I will do a little thing so I know when you've caught up to me. Unless anyone has any further comments. Yep, I am enjoying Star Trek Picard. Would you look at that? If only, like, 2019 me could see me now. This has been the best season so far, definitely. And I know they've all started good, but this has been good longer than any of the others, and I think I'm seeing enough patterns in what this writing team can do, and that, yeah, I've got faith in they'll do what matters well, and a sample size of 1. Like, maybe they legitimately didn't pay attention to Season 2 because they were putting everything in Season 3. Maybe Season 2 was a bad day for them. Maybe Season 3 is an exception. But so far, I'm engaging with the story. You know, it's not the focus, but that means that the focus is what the team is good at. Great stream as always. Thank you, StressVK. And Carlos, that period existed till Archer was president of the New Form Federation. That's interesting, actually, isn't it? Because Archer was aware of Section 31, and he was the first president of the United Federation. You think he might have done something about that? Like, maybe he did and they went underground, but Discovery might have you believe that he incorporated it. Actually, I like this. If we use Section 31 to establish some lore that, Archer knew about Section 31. He was the first guy in power to do it. He, like, outed them and, like, forced them to integrate with Starfleet intelligence, which, you know, they needed intelligence. Like, the Federation was founded because of the war. You know, you can't fight the Romulans without an intelligence agency. But, you know, to kind of control them, be like, I can monitor them now. They're not some shady organization. But they kind of went behind his back and stayed shady and did a lot of things like Starfleet intelligence didn't know about, or like Greater Starfleet didn't know about. This actually, I'm going to write this down. This actually kind of fixes Discovery for me. Discovery Section 31. I really like that, actually. See, there you go. With a little bit of thought, you can fix anything. That could be a short. What do you guys think of a shorts series, so YouTube Shorts, where it's really little things like that just fix something annoying or that a lot of people don't like about the universe? Because I could probably whip those out pretty quick. Shorts do well. That would help grow the channel. And I've got a few ideas like that, like little theories, like, oh, I like that. I'm going to think about that. Stress VK, Picard Season 3 has way too much star power to fail at this point. I don't know. Like, there's some truly wasted cast. Doesn't Velma have an amazing cast? Like, an amazing and diverse cast? David C., just like this channel, Picard is now appointment television. Oh, like you've always come here. Thank you. Yes. I didn't know what appointment television means, but I have worked it out. Yes, it's good seeing we got pretty much the same people every time. Consistently as well. Picard is drawing eyes. It's been very good going through this season with an audience. Mathman, they don't explicitly say it's Section 31 in Enterprise, though, do they? Yes, they do. I have just edited the Watch Order guide where I took the quote where the guy tells Archer, check the charter, Article 13, Section 31 makes certain allowances for bending the rules in times of extreme threat. It is explicitly Section 31. I don't know if they call themselves Section 31 by name. I'm pretty sure they do. And if not, like, Reed definitely knows. Like, Archer could figure out if he wanted. But I am very confident they explicitly say they name themselves Section 31. It's Carlos A. Smith, I believe Section 31 continued as they were because the clause of deniability we needed for legitimate reasons of business. But who's the Discovery Admiral? She seems legitimately surprised at, like, the extent that Section 31 is going to. Like, she's surprised their headquarters is mine. She seems surprised, and, like, it was a shock that how much they were doing. Like, it was kind of known they were shady. They didn't really like talking about it, but I think everyone was like, we just don't like intelligence agencies. They're an intelligence agency, so we're uncomfortable. And then what Control did is they made them realize, oh, they've been going behind our backs and doing a lot independently, and this needs to stop. And then they thought they killed Section 31. You know, the Federation thought they got rid of it. In reality, they just went even further into hiding and did everything under the covers. So actually, if we get anything out of Section 31, I hope it's good lore like that. Even if I don't like it, it's nice little citations in the in Memory Alpha. Just VK, I'm down for all things Star Trek, shorts, longs, and in-betweens. That's good. I'll probably do that. Yeah, because there are a lot of little things like that don't really warrant a video. I could never make that into a video. If I made it into a video, it'd be like I thought about like some complete history things, like a complete history of Section 31. But for that, I'm purely speculating here, and I don't really want to go into speculation for those like factual, here's an info dump. Like if you've never seen classic Star Trek and you're gonna go watch Section 31, here's what you need to know, or like here's your info dump. So you can probably expect to see those at some point, but I'll also want to focus on the Watch Order guide now that I've started again. It's audio done is kind of the stage it's in. It's first pass. It sounds like how it's going to sound. There's some missing transition points. So now I've done all the charts for like the Watch Order charts that I'm going to put in as the video goes. So it's going to like, the chart's going to slowly grow. And then it needs a pass of basically me adding in like random frames or scenes of the show, like, over what I'm talking about. But its first editing pass is done. Now it just needs the kind of special effects and cutaways. And the things, but it sounds done. You could listen to it, and it's like 95. It's just the transitions that are missing. But yeah, I think we're wrapping up. The one that I didn't think I'd have so much to talk about, I think has just become the longest, the longest stream for Picard. And that means overall, so yeah, I'm happy with it. And I think I will wrap it up now, so thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. No, not yet. End stream. End. I always forget about the pop-up.